Hi guys, this is the walkthrough for the trigonometric ratios assignment. So number 1 and 2 here, they just want you to label the sides with respect to the marked acute angle. So the first thing you always want to label is your hypotenuse. That's across from your right angle. So in the first one, RP is your hypotenuse. It's across from your right angle. And then you want to circle which angle you're dealing with. So we're looking at angle R. That's the one that's marked. Across from it is opposite. If I could write opposite. And then next to it is adjacent. Okay, so hypotenuse is across from the right angle. And then the angle we're looking at now is angle R, the marked angle. Across from that is opposite, and next to it is adjacent. All right, number 2 is the same thing. Number 3, we have a right triangle. The sides of a right triangle opposite the right angle. So across from the right angle, again, we just mentioned that is your hypotenuse. Right across from the right angle is your hypotenuse. The leg of a right angle marked across from the marked acute angle is the right opposite. Okay. So we label our hypotenuse and we circle the angle in question. Across from that is opposite. And then next to it is your adjacent. Okay. So hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. And again, same thing. They just want you to label the sides with respect to the circled angle. So across from the right angle is the hypotenuse, and then across from the circled angle is your opposite. And then the leg next to the circled angle is your adjacent side. Same thing there. All right. The next question, 5, 6, and 7, they want you to write ratios for each of these angles. So we have SOHCAHTOA to help us. This is an H, in case you couldn't read it, because it was very sloppily done. Okay, so tangent, right? Tangent is opposite over adjacent, so they have that for us, opposite over adjacent. So the best way to do this is do the A's first, right? So I would circle angle A, right? Your hypotenuse. Well, I would first start by labeling your hypotenuse, the side across from the right angle. Then I would circle the angle in question, so angle A. Across from that is opposite. And then next to that is adjacent. Okay, so tangent is opposite over adjacent. So that's going to be 3 over 4, right? For sine, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So opposite over hypotenuse. So the sine of that angle is going to be 3 over 5, opposite over hypotenuse. And then the cosine, that's adjacent over hypotenuse. So the adjacent side is 4, and then the hypotenuse is 5. So this one is going to be 4 over 5. Okay. And then for 5, 6, and 7, they then want the tangent, sine, and cosine of C. So again, when you change the angle, the side that's adjacent and the side that's opposite are going to change. They're basically going to switch. So if instead of looking at angle A here, we look at angle C, the hypotenuse stays the same. That's still across from the right angle. But now this other side, AB, is the one that's across from the angle in question. So that becomes opposite. And then this side, BC, becomes adjacent. Opposite is across from the angle in question. Adjacent is next to. So we basically swapped the opposite and adjacent when we went from angle A to angle C. So tangent is opposite over adjacent. So the opposite is now 4. and the adjacent is now 3, so that's going to be 4 over 3. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so opposite is now 4, hypotenuse is 5. And then cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so adjacent is now 3, and the hypotenuse is still 5, so that's going to be 3 over 5. And notice too how when we switch the angles, these switched, right? The cosine of A was equal to the sine of C, and the sine of A was equal to the cosine of C. So when we switch the angles and the opposite and the adjacent side switched, your sine and your cosines also switched. Okay. 8 is pretty much the same thing, so I'll let you work on this one. Again, you want the sine. I would find the ones for A first, and then I would erase the diagram and then, or erase the labels and then do it with B. So label your hypotenuse first, and then pick one of the angles. Okay. 9 is the same thing. Again, we're just repeating that. Again, label your hypotenuse first, and then I would start with N. So then this is opposite. This is adjacent. Okay, and then you can solve all these out. Okay, and then what I would do after you find N is I would erase everything on the diagram except the hypotenuse, and then circle P, and now this side becomes opposite, and this side becomes adjacent. And then you're just simply solving all those ratios out, just like you did in 5, 6, and 7. Okay, and then 10, 11, they're asking you which ratio is going to be represented for tangent of A. So here's your hypotenuse. We're looking at A. So 24 is opposite because it's across. 7 is adjacent because it's next to, right? 24 is across. 7 is next to, so it's adjacent. And tangent, right? Again, we're using SOHCAHTOA. So tangent is opposite over adjacent. So 24 over 7. Opposite over adjacent. Okay. 11 is the same thing, except this time you're finding cosine of Q. So label your hypotenuse, which is this side. Well, this one's a little more challenging. Okay, they only give us 2 sides of the triangle. We need to find the third side, but we can do that. We know the Pythagorean theorem, right? A squared plus B squared equals C squared, right? The 2 legs are going to be um, 5 and 12, so we can say 5 squared plus 12 squared equals C squared. 5 squared is 25. 12 squared is 144. You add those together, you're going to get 169. To get rid of the square, you take the square root of both sides, right? And so we get 13 equals C. So we now know that this is 13. All right, and then now we can do exactly what we did for number 10. Label your hypotenuse. Right, this side's your hypotenuse. We're looking at Q, right, across from its opposite, next to its adjacent, right, and then opposite, or cosine, right? Cosine would be this one, would be adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent is 12, hypotenuse is 13. So it's going to be 12 over 13. Okay, and I believe the last ones are just simply practice, write the ratios. Again, label the hypotenuse first. circle, we're looking at z, so circle z. Across from it is opposite. Next to it is adjacent. And so what's the tangent of z? Well, tangent, right, if you go back up, SOHCAHTOA, tangent is opposite over adjacent, opposite over adjacent. Opposite is 21. Adjacent is 28. 21 over 28. You can leave it like that, or you can reduce it. If you divide the numerator and the denominator by 7, you're going to get 3 over 4. Okay, either one of those answers is fine. And then you're doing the same thing for the other 7 here. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Tangent, you're opposite over adjacent, and so on. Okay, so again, we'll do Google Meets at 7:30 every evening. We can do a lot of these together, or text me on Remind, or email me if you have any questions.